dark in there.
Has been leading to this.
Justin!
A person who has a penis and a vagina.
But I am going to bury that hatchet deep into his face.
Your father, Samson, was one of the 3 kids who murdered Victor Crowley.
Boom!
You like this better than ice cream. If he can feel pain, then he can die. You like this better than Jesus.
He seems to think that Trent and that guy with you, your uncle, he says that they were with your father when they killed Victor Crowley years ago. He thinks that Victor Crowley has his revenge on them, that the curse will be lifted and he'll just go away and it will be safe.
Oh, you like this better than baby Jesus.
About an equal amount.
Hermaphrodite. Big word of the day for you. What is a hermaphrodite, darling?
Justin!
Do you love me?
Come on, you hatchet-faced fuck.
Hey, Hysteria continues. Keep up the good work. Thanks for being big fans of Friday the 13th, Part 5. This is Tommy Jarvis. Like a good fight.
We are back with Hatchet 2, and this is episode, I think it's 217, if I pull my notes
317.
up. No, 317. I've been lost 100 episodes there. It can happen. So, yes, Adam Green's sequel to the original Hatchet, which was that from 2006, wasn't it, I think? So one of the more modern sequels, although, of course, this is, almost 15 years old now, isn't it? So doesn't time fly? Talking of which, we are covering David Cronenberg's The Fly on Patreon. You see what I did there?
Oh, clever.
Thank you. So I'll be coming after your job, Erik. And anyway, how are you doing, Erik? You are well and truly back from Portugal now, aren't you? And out of that prison.
I couldn't be more back from Portugal if I tried. It's raining like cats and dogs outside. And flies.
And flies. Oh, that's,
I'm glad you had your vacation, then come back and hoist Hatchet 2 upon us, Erik.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, it is going to be interesting to see kind of what our thoughts are on this, because I think we may be, just like Victor Crowley does, possibly neatly dissected down the middle with some of his victims. Who knows? We shall see. But, well, Joseph, apart from maybe the film we're covering, are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. If I can remember correctly, I'm pretty good.
Excellent. And Nathan, are you looking forward to getting back in the swamp?
Yes, I'm looking forward to swamp-related mishaps. You know, I once wrote a story called Death on the Bayou, and I think a bayou is like a swamp, so I like to think that Hatchet was inspired by that, even though they didn't read it.
Well, it could have been psychically thing, couldn't it? Kind of like in one of those other movies, like you could have been like Frankie Avalon and Donna Wilkes in Bloodsong.
Yeah.
And whoever, Adam Green, suddenly went to sleep and he had you whispering in his ear from across the nation. Or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, although, to be honest, I'm not sure Hatchet 2 was that inspired, but...
I think you put more thought into that, whatever you said to Nathan, than they did this movie.
Well, we shall see. But yeah, I'm doing okay, apart from before we came on air, there was like The Mist in here, the film. There was this giant flying spider bug thing, which was flying around again, very apropos, whatever the word is, the saying is, for the fact we're covering the fly. So I managed to catch whatever it was in a cup and pop it out the door. So as long as I don't hear any bangs against the door, I think it should be safe. So anyway, the gang's all back together and we'll talk about what we've been watching recently. So, well, Erik, have you seen anything you'd like to tell us about?
No, I haven't seen nothing.
Nothing apart from sweaty men's bollocks in showers, I imagine.
What? No.
Well, in that Turkish prison, Portuguese prison.
You
even.
are a whore, darling.
Yeah, you say it, RuPaul.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. Well, I know you're just back, so and catching up with a few things. So, Nathan, have you caught up with anything recently?
I watched the first Purge, not the first one in the series, but the one that's called the first Purge. So yeah, I watched it, and I mean, again, like I said with the Forever Purge, if you like these movies, then you may like it. If you don't like them, you're not going to like it. This one to
Nathan,
me...
sorry, I was actually getting a little confused. I'm like, didn't he talk about the Purge on the last episode? There's another Purge?
Forever Purge.
Oh my God.
There's the original trilogy, and then there's the first one that's a prequel, and then the Forever Purge. So, and I went backwards. I thought I had seen the first Purge, but I guess I hadn't. because when I saw the trailer, I didn't remember it. So then I went back and watched it. And, you know, I liked it. It definitely, to me, is heavily political, you know, the message in it. I mean, in one scene, one of the evil guys literally grabs a woman in a certain area. And, you know, that's obviously a, you know, a nod to...
I don't know what you mean.
I'm like, I don't want to get into politics because people get so mean about them, and I don't want to be mean, and I don't want anybody to be mean to me. So, yeah, it's very political, and I think a lot of people might be turned like off by that, but that kind of stuff doesn't bother me whatsoever. I don't, you know, I mean, I'm fine with it. I just want to see the purge action, and there's purge action. You know, people get all, you know, ready to kill and slash people up, and there's one character, they call him Skeletor. He's not as cool as the original Skeletor, but I thought his character was pretty entertaining and interesting to watch because, you know, he's just one of these people that just wants to purge, and like he's completely insane and, you know, just is going around just randomly stabbing people. So, you know, I thought his character was interesting, but, you know, it's hard for me to say whether someone's going to like it or not because, you know, I mean, it's very split down the middle. It literally has, I think, a 5.2 out of 10 on the IMDb because people either love it or hate it. It's either got like a 10 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10. So, you know, take that for what you will.
Okay, I think I said last time with the Purge movies, they all kind of tend to blur into one for me at the moment. So I think I have seen it, but I'm not sure. Have you seen it, Erik?
I have seen it, yes, but like yourself, I've seen all. I think there's 5 Purge films, and I've seen them all. But differentiating what happened in which one is difficult for me. I need to watch them again. Yeah, it's like the Saw franchise.
I was going to say the good thing is tonight we'll see Strictly Come Dancing Purge Toya, which is in more of a thrill.
Yeah, you said that this time last week, Justin.
Yes, but again, she's odds-on favourite for leaving this week.
You are a whore, darling.
I'm not that I watch it, but I would make an exception for seeing Toya being kicked off. But Joseph, Purge movies, I know we probably talked to... Are you a fan of them?
Well, I'm just waiting for Erik to go through his soundboard.
Kiss my ass, cunt.
He's got a lot of great sound clips, though, you got to admit.
That's how you know he's back.
I'm finished now.
I've seen the first 2. I liked them. I think I liked the second one a little better than the first one. It's more relentless, but I don't have a problem with the Purge films.
Cool. Okay. Excellent. So, Nathan, is anything else you've been watching?
Yes, I caught up with one that I kind of watched, not too long ago, but I really wanted to watch it again. I can't remember if I talked about it then, but it's called Blades. It takes place on a golf course, and all these people, these golfers and caddies and stuff, are getting killed and hacked up on the golf course, and they don't know who's doing it. I don't want to spoil anything because it gets completely ridiculous, but the characters, for the most part, play it straight, like it's serious, and that's kind of what makes it really entertaining to me. It's an 80s movie, and I love the golf course as a setting for like a horror movie. I think it's a fun one because there's one scene that I think is hilarious where one of the golf pros is given a lesson on swings, and while she's doing that with these people, this caddy is going to these high bushes and trying to fish out like where they've hit the golf balls. And at one point something grabs him and like pulls him back, and then blood's just going everywhere. And then there's all this mayhem on the golf course with everyone running in different directions. And, it's a fun movie, I think.
Is that a Trauma movie?
Yes, but it's only distributed by Trauma. They didn't make it, so it's not the Trauma feel, if that makes sense.
It's a bit like Girls' School Screamers.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even though I love Girls' School Screamers, I would say I actually find this one more entertaining. and like towards the ending, it kind of turns into this like Jaws satire. But like I said, the characters play it like it's very serious, and I think that makes it more fun than the characters, I guess, being in on the joke, if that makes sense.
I can see that. I actually think sometimes those movies work much better if you got characters taking it deadly serious rather than winking at the camera.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Joseph, how about you?
Well, I wanted to do the 31 Days of Halloween thing, so I said the best I could do is have some recently seen on the show this month. So I watched the 2 of those VHS movies. Like The Purge, there's like 100 of these movies now, so I kind of lost track of which ones they are. I want to say 85 and 99. If you've seen the VHS movies, you're getting the exact same thing here. Like 3 stories will be great, 2 will be okay, and 1 will be terrible. There's usually a framing narrative, although I think 99 it nixes that whole framing narrative and just tells tales, so it's at least a little breezier. But I had fun with them while I was watching them. But they're like throwaway food. You eat it and then you just forget about it. So I think there's like 2 more that I need to see, so I'll be finally caught up with the entire series. But if you like the VHS films, you're going to like these. If you don't like them, like the Purge films, you're not going to like it. So there's that. And that's all I've seen.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, I've seen some of the VHS movies, but again, they do tend to sort of meld into one a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a new one out called VHS Beyond.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet. I'm actually hearing some pretty decent things about that one. I was a little disappointed in 85 because, it's 85. I think that's one of the best years for horror films in general. But I don't know, it dragged a lot. I thought 99, I think it's 99 or 94. I can't remember the year, but it was better. But it's okay. I mean, they were both okay for what they are,
Cool. Okay. I did see, incidentally, on Shudder, there was the Found Footage Phenomenon, which is a documentary about found footage movies.
Oh, that sounds good.
Which is, it's definitely worth seeing. It's kind of goes back and obviously speaks to people behind the Blair Witch Project and looks at the history of found footage movies and how they've gone forward. And there are some still pretty good ones out there, but there has the whole, it's the whole thing of everyone running around screaming for half the movie. And a shaky camcorder, which gets a bit grating because it's not really a replacement for good filmmaking. Having said that, there are some good found footage horror movies out there, but that documentary is definitely worth checking out. Just for me, I've been watching quite a few movies recently, and just a couple I mentioned, and a few are going to be reviewing on Hysteria Lives. One is one I had never heard of before, but was quite intriguing. It's called South of Sanity from 2012. And it's the first ever slasher movie made in the Antarctic. And it had quite an intriguing kind of backstory in so much that it's basically a group of scientists who are on the British Antarctic base were trying to, during parts of the day or something, they have lots of work to do, or certain times of the year they have lots of work to do, but other times there's nothing much to do. So one of them came up with the idea of making a movie. So all the people acting in it are actually the people working at the Antarctic substation. And the person who shot it was also there, but he was a filmmaker. He was a wildlife filmmaker or a kind of a drone filmmaker. So it has this kind of sheen to it, but all the actors are amateurs, basically, just people working there. And essentially it's a kind of pure slasher story that somebody has, those masks that you get on CPR dummies. When people give CPR and they're kind of practicing CPR, and there's that kind of mask on them. And the mask is actually, I was reading up about this, was modelled on a drowning victim from the Seine in Paris in the 1900s. So, but the killer in this wears that mask on their face and basically goes around in the classic sort of one by one thing, killing off everyone in the substation until they get down to the last character. So considering it was made as a wheeze, really, it's actually pretty good. It's pretty decent if you put things to one side. And after a while, the kind of non-acting feels quite naturalistic. And it is actually quite gory as well. There's a scene where somebody's got an electric drill spinning around on top of their head. Yeah, so it's considering they made a crane for like dolly shots out of old bits of steel they had lying around the Antarctic base. But anyway, I reviewed that, so I'd never heard of it before it got suggested to me. So I'm guessing, but I'm curious to know if any of you guys have ever heard of that.
No.
Or one to look out for. So possibly one that's a little bit better known was a movie that Arrow released a few years back. It's The Last Matinee from 2020, which was Chilean, Uruguayan and Argentinian co-production set in 93, talking about retro horror movies. And this one was touted as a kind of a giallo, and influenced by the giallo and the slasher movie. I'd say it's very much more influenced by the slasher movie. And the basic setup is a killer. There's a showing of a gory horror movie in a cinema, and late at night, and there's a handful of people there watching it, and there's a killer going around killing everyone and plucking out their eyeballs to put them in a big jar, and he kind of munches on them like popcorn. So it looks fantastic. It's kind of shot a lot of the homage to giallos or gialli are they're kind of those kind of bright primary colours or whatever the Dario Argento used in films like Suspiria. It also kind of obviously references films like Demons, but especially a film which I rewatched recently, which was reviewed on my site, but not by myself, but for Anguish, which had Zelda Rubinstein in it. It's kind of Spanish-American co-production from 1986 or 87, I think, which had the kind of a killer killing people and taking eyeballs inside the cinema. So there's very much kind of a kind of pastiche or a thing of this, and it's pretty good. It's got a good, feels like it's got a decent budget, or at least they're making the best of their kind of what budget they have. Yeah, has any of you guys seen that one?
I started watching it, but the copy I had was subtitled, and I didn't really feel like reading at the time. Is there I hate to watch dubbed movies, but lately I don't really have the time to read. It sounds terrible, but I want to watch it with like a dub track or something.
I only subbed, I think. I've not not as far as I'm aware. There's not a dubbed copy. Mm-hmm. But it's worth a watch anyway. I mean, the story is very kind of simplistic in so much it's kind of exactly what you expect it's going to be, but it's quite well done. And the other one I mentioned is I'd never seen this before, but I think it got mentioned possibly by Amanda or maybe you, Nathan, when we're talking about Happy Hell Night, was the other killer priest Canadian slasher from the early 90s. It was Prom Night 4, Deliver Us From Evil. I'd never seen it before, so I was curious to catch up with it. And especially as I think I remember Prom Night 2, Hello Mary Lou, coming out on video in the late 80s or early 90s, whenever it was in the UK on video, and I watched that. I never saw Prom Night Last Kiss. So I my interest in the Prom Night series kind of waned a little bit with the kind of supernatural angle. But when I had heard that this one was going back to a slasher movie roots, and it kind of does. With this, you got a killer priest who is locked away for many years and manages to escape and goes back to his seminary, where there's some kids who've decided to skip their prom, go and party, and starts killing off one by one. So very kind of classic setup. It's pretty cheesy and fun. I mean, it's kind of, for me, it was kind of, I thought it's was a little bit of a wasted opportunity, because you had the whole Hamilton High prom night from obviously the same high school, and the killer bypasses all those promiscuous teens partying on their prom night and goes back to this old house where there's two couples. So it's kind of done on a bit, it's not very ambitious, but it's got some fun to it, and it's got a few gory kills and a great scene where the killer priest kind of crucifies two teens and sets fire to them on these massive crucifixes he's managed to find or knock up in 5 minutes from somewhere. But Nathan, what was your thoughts on that one?
Oh, I love it. I may have actually talked about it and recently seen in one of our more recent episodes, because I've watched it like fairly recently as well. And yeah, I was a big fan because I had seen it way back in the day, but I didn't remember a lot about it. So I wanted to rewatch it. And I mean, I don't know if it's just because it's just fun to rewatch an 80s slasher I don't remember or what, but there's just something very nostalgic and fun about it. Although it may be 90s, right? Is it 90s or 80s?
92.
Okay. But yeah, part 4 definitely goes back to the slasher leanings. And like I said, one of my favorite scenes is when the one guy's on the roof and the killer's in the attic stabbing the butcher's knife up through the rooftop trying to kill him. And at one point he falls and he reaches for something to grab, and the only thing he can grab is the blade of the knife. And, I thought that was a pretty tense and fun scene.
Yes, that's kind of pretty well done, I think. But Erik, have you ever seen Prom Night 4?
I have, yeah. There's on Region 2 DVD, they brought out Prom Night 1 to 4 set, and I bought that. So I have watched it once. I remember kind of enjoying it. It must be 15 years since I saw it, though, so I can't remember a huge amount.
Well, it might pop up at some point
it may.
in the near future.
Well, we still have to do 2 and 3, don't we?
Well, they're not slashers, are they?
I would argue that 2 could be actually a slasher film in a sense. So it could be a main show pick, in my opinion.
Okay, controversial, but possibly we'll have a look into it. But are you a fan of Part 4, Joseph?
I saw it on video back in the early 90s, and that's the last time I watched it. So I need to rewatch it.
Okay, well, maybe that will pop up at some point in a not too distant future. But the last thing I'll just mention, because I sent you guys some sound clips from that movie Madness, the another 90s, 1994 giallo by Bruno Mattei, who gave the world Hell of the Living Dead, aka Zombie Creeping Flesh. And this was his made for half a slice of pizza rip-off of Tenebrae, an eyeball, Umberto Lenzi's eyeball. And it's got probably the funniest English dubbing I've ever heard of any Italian movie. Eric's obviously well aware of, remembers Eurotrash.
Is that the one you sent the clip of, Justin?
Yeah, with the crying baby.
Yeah.
Well, not the baby, the doll that's got I should prepare some sound clips just for your delectations. But yeah, it's kind of the main story is just ripped off from Tenebrae. It's got like a woman who's a comic book artist who works on Fumetti, I think they were called, the Italian horror or thriller comics. And she's got a character called Dr. Dark, and somebody's going around killing. It must be on something to do with eyeballs at the moment, but someone's going around killing babysitters and taking their eyeballs, dressed in the classic giallo garb of the black fedora and their face kind of covered with a black mesh. And the press say that she's to blame, or the comic book's to blame for the thing. And it's very much Peter Neal in Tenebrae saying, 'cause she says something like, if someone kills someone with a power draw, do you go after Black & Decker, which is kind of pretty much identical to what the character Peter Neal says in Dario Argento's Tenebrae. But yeah, it's incredibly bad, but quite entertaining in that kind of bad movie way. And I'm a fan of Gialli and a fan of the really good ones, but also this one is particularly awful, but in quite an entertaining kind of way, especially with that English dub where it's bizarre. I wondered if it's because they were trying to match the lip movements in Italian, because people will say, "Are you going out later?" and things like that. So there's kind of everything seem to be sort of little half a second of unless they've forgotten their lines. But yes, that one is still languishing in kind of YouTube hell, I kind of guess. I don't know if that's ever going to get a decent release, but yeah. So. The clips I sent you guys, is that one you might be interested in seeing, do you think?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it eventually.
What was it called again, Justin?
It's called Madness, or the Italian title is Occhi Senza Volto, which I think one of the Italian titles is translates as Eyes Without a Face, which is of course is the very famous French horror, very lyrical horror movie from 1960.
And the wonderful song by Billy Idol.
Yeah, of course, yes. But it's kind of, it is absolutely appalling, but in the best possible way. So, because obviously for us, it's kind of films. Sorry, Joseph?
I said sold.
Sold, excellent. Okay, well, just be careful what you wish for, because thing. But anyway, that's what I've been going through recently. I have reviewed Madness. I will be putting that on Hysteria Lives at some point if you want to check that out. And I have sent some friends in high places details of where they can purchase the rights to that movie. So we'll see if anything happens with that. So, okay, well, without further ado, let's get back to the swamp. So, Erik, are you going to bring us back in after this?
Yes.
On October 1st, the hunt is on.
What are we hunting?
Victor Crowley. Adam Green's Hatchet 2. In theaters, unrated October 1st.
Hatchet 2 picks up right where the original Hatchet ends, as the quiet but hot-tempered Mary Beth barely escapes from the clutches of the mysterious Victor Crowley. Crowley, who has already murdered all of Mary Beth's friends and other vacationers in the New Orleans swamp country. And then there's a full stop. This synopsis is really poorly written, not by me. I took this from Amazon. But let's just say Hatchet 2 picks up from where Hatchet 1 leaves off. A bunch of vigilantes go into the swamp woods area and get hacked to pieces in incredibly gory ways by Victor Crowley. So yes, Hatchet 2 was chosen by me for this pick because, I don't know, I'm finding slim pickings on the slasher front at the moment. I couldn't think of anything else to pick. I mean, I'm not a hater of this film by any means. I just don't think it's anything worth writing home about. That's about as positive as I can get. I've seen the first Hatchet film twice, and I still can never recall any single moment from it. So this one starts up exactly where the first one left off. So I had to go to Wikipedia to refresh my memory on what happened in the first film. So it helped me to realize that Danielle Harris wasn't actually in the first Hatchet movie. She replaces the original actress playing the role of Mary Beth in this one. I mean, it delivers all of the goods in the gore department. You know, much like the first one, you can't complain. The gore is spectacular and it's great fun. It's just that the non-gore moments feel kind of flat to me. The characters are nondescript and a bit boring. But fortunately, there's lots of familiar faces here to help me distinguish who's who. You know, there's Tom Holland, John Carl Beekler, Kane Hodder, Danielle Harris, AJ Bowen. So lots of people who've been in other horror and slasher movies. So it was easy to remember who was who. If it had gone the usual route of casting airbrush teens, I think I would have struggled to differentiate them. I thought Danielle Harris was great as the lead. I mean, she has little to do, in fairness, and the same with Tony Todd. And his resonant voice does bring a slight sort of elegance to proceedings, but his character is kind of one-dimensional also. And I know the characters in any slasher film are cardboardy, you know, but I can't put my finger on exactly why it's so noticeable in this one. I mean, I can handle Kevin Bacon talking about the approaching storm in Friday the 13th, but there's just something about the interactions between these characters that I just find a bit banal. There's kind of a nerdy 16-year-old boy locked in his bedroom playing video games and listening to heavy metal aura about the movie. You know, there's the headache-inducing heavy metal hyperactive opening credits. There's the gratuitous nudity on the camcorder that Jack Cracker finds. And then the primary focus of the film, as I said, is that outrageous gore. But it comes at the expense of, you know, any kind of atmosphere or suspense in the movie. You know, there's no major chase scenes I found, and it relies a lot on Victor Crowley just appearing suddenly behind people all of a sudden for its scares. But for me personally, I would have liked a bit more mystique maybe to the killer, you know, like Jason in those early Friday the 13th movies. He's kind of a shadowy presence for the first hour or so. You know, you might see his feet wandering through the woods, or you see him, you know, you get a POV shot of him looking from behind a tree and he's moving a branch to investigate what's going on. It's those kind of basic slasher movie factors that I find are sorely missing here. But as I said, it delivers in the gore department. You know, you get strangulation by intestines and decapitations, chainsaw deaths, heads crushed, heads pushed into outboard motors, jaws ripped out. And my favourite moment is when somebody gets turned inside out towards the end of the film. So it's a real effects showcase in that manner. And it's done in a really over-the-top, inoffensive way, kind of akin to the gore in Evil Dead, or something like, Piranha 3DD, but, not having that kind of juvenile ambience to it. So I don't hate Hatchet 2. I liked Daniel Harris. I like the outrageous and brilliantly realised gore, but I think they missed an opportunity here by not trying to create or generate any kind of atmosphere. It maybe leans a little too heavily into being jokey and humorous. So the film doesn't contain any kind of suspense or threat to me. So the non-gore moments, a bit ho-hum, but the gore moments really deliver. So it's kind of a 5 out of 10 movie for me. So let's see. I think the person who's probably going to like this film the most would be Nathan Johnson.
Yes, I really enjoy the Hatchet movies. Now, while I think that this sequel is not as good as the first one, and I think the reason why might be the characters. I think I preferred the characters in the first one. I kind of like this idea of this crazy, like, motley crew group of people on a boat getting stalked, whereas this seems more like, or it actually is, kind of like vigilantes heading back into the woods, like prepared to fight, which, is fine. But, like I said, I kind of prefer the first in general. But for this one, I did enjoy it. I kind of felt that Mary Beth might have been a little selfish in this movie because she's getting all these people to kind of go back in the swamp, knowing it could mean certain death for many of them. So that may not be a good thing just because she wants revenge. So yeah, I didn't think that was a very nice thing to do. Even though, I was definitely, fine with her character, and I do love Danielle Harris. So, no complaints there. I just kind of felt her motivations in general were a bit self-serving, even though I don't think she was trying to be. The characters in general, I just find to be very, stereotypical. They're kind of just there to die, and die they do, and they die very well. There's just the gore is the selling point for the Hatchet movies. And I mean, the gore is top notch. It's crazy, jaws like ripped out and, like impalements, and one guy gets his whole face cut off with an axe. I mean, that kind of stuff is just a lot of fun. It has a good, kind of final battle, in that shack. Although, I was surprised that Victor Crowley came back for part 3, considering what happens at the end of this one. But hey, I mean, he's already been killed. So, he was already dead when he was killing. So I guess that kind of, makes up for it. I mean, if Jason can get struck by lightning and brought back to life, then I say anything can happen. But in general, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Maybe not as much as the first, but it has all the gore, the swamp atmosphere, and the kind of comedy that the original has. Definitely not one to take seriously. It's just there for some really great gore set pieces that I really enjoy watching. So yeah, thumbs up from me.
Awesome. Joseph, feel free to unload.
Yeah, I just didn't care. That's it, really. I mean, this movie is 83 minutes long, but feels double that because nothing of real note happens until around the 55-minute mark. I actually timed it. There's one death in the opening 5 minutes, and then the next 50 minutes is a lot of explaining Victor Crowley's backstory. I've said this a million times, so here's 1,000,001. I don't really give a rat's ass about a killer's background. Even someone interesting like, Harry Warden or Kenny from Terror Train, even they don't merit 50 minutes of backstory. And frankly speaking, Victor Crowley, he's a very uninteresting killer. I mean, yeah, he rips people in half and he strangles dudes with their own entrails. Who cares? He's otherwise this big dumb baby in overalls. I mean, that's his whole shtick, so why do we have to spend 50 minutes learning about that if there's nothing else to him? I also didn't really like a single person in this movie except Tony Todd, who I thought was playing against type while still playing in type. It's a very fun performance. It's kind of campy for him. But, I just got to the halfway mark and struggled to care about anyone or anything happening on screen. Danielle Harris, she's overly melodramatic while Tony Todd is kind of campy. So it feels like no one took this seriously or, but not in the good kind of way. I think they spend more time worrying about goofy cameos and these extended jokes than they do anything that matters. There's one scene where they actually watch one of those Girls Gone Wild videos they made fun of in the first film, almost in full. And I'm sitting there thinking, what is the point of this? And then later they spend 5 minutes of the runtime arguing about cookies and milk. I guess the contrast of a bunch of, dirtballs arguing about sweets is supposed to be funny, but I don't know. The gore is nice, I guess, if you like that sort of thing. But if you've seen one person's face shoved into a boat motor, you've seen them all. So, for me, I'm 0-2 on the Hatchet series thus far, and I don't really like my odds for the next one.
Yeah, from what I've read, the next one is a dip in quality, but we'll wait and see. Justin, what did you think?
Well, I was kind of a real fan of the first Hatchet movie. I thought it was funny, witty, and the characters that were kind of like really good fun, like the two Girls Gone Wild sort of models, and especially the really ditzy one. They really made the movie for me, and the whole thing, the characters in that were just fun. There was a sense of mystery. You didn't really know why this kind of grumpy Mary Beth was on the boat going out. So there was that going on. It was you were, with the audience was kind of joining their kind of journey, I'm going to guess, to going out and discovering that Victor Crowley was real. Whereas this, to me, it feels like they Adam Green was kind of going for that kind of Aliens feel, if that makes sense. More they're kind of like not that Hatchet was like Alien, but in so much that everything is like the old sequel adage, go big or go home. Everything was bigger and more over the top. And also the comparison of all the kind of the mercenaries going after Victor Crowley kind of reminded me of Aliens. So it felt like he was kind of going that direction, although they are completely different movies. Obviously, the budgets were going to have been more different. I mean, as a spectacle, when it gets going, the kind of the gore gags are, a sight for sore eyes. I mean, my 14-year-old self was just enjoying seeing all those kind of gory kills, like the someone being the two men being chainsawed in half from below with their balls dropping on the floor. The guy still pumping away after being decapitated after he was fucking. All those kind of things. They're just kind of like, I know, sorry, but I mean, for a film like Hatchet 2, Erik, I can't be like pussyfooting around these things. Tony Todd probably gets the most spectacular death scene with being chopped in half and having his spine being turned inside out after Victor Crowley pulls his spine out. So for me, all those kind of things were a lot of fun, and especially for someone who grew up in the early 80s and through the 80s where everything was censored. And I was just thinking that if Mary Whitehouse had seen these kill scenes on a TV, her head would have exploded in a shower of viscera, like in Scanners or something. It would just been so. But having said that, I think otherwise the film was a bit of a hollow experience. I think part of the problem with Victor Crowley is that he is, and it never really gets a grip with this, he's this huge hulking, very physical killer who's an amalgamation of Jason Voorhees and Leatherface and all these other killers. And of course, the original Hatchet, Adam Green, was obviously a love letter to the slasher movie, was that he's supposed to be this ghost in some ways. In fact, Victor Crowley is, in essence, dead, apparently, and unkillable, which of course is a pastiche on the Unstoppable Killer and all that kind of thing. But and they have this kind of slightly half-cocked thing about, well, maybe if we take his head, that will stop him for good. But I agree with whoever said that for me, the thing was they get to, it worked in the first film that you had this kind of slow boat ride, and then you get there and they're wandering around, their sense of discovering what's going to find a cabin, they start getting killed off. Whereas this, you kind of really know that's going to happen. So you get there and the film, it feels very insular. All the characters all wander off by themselves in couples looking for Victor Crowley, even though they know he's hugely deadly, and everything feels very kind of like it's almost shot on a set. It doesn't feel like you're in the swamps of Louisiana. So there was, and also all that kind of preamble and all that kind of stunt genre casting, which I kind of appreciated to some degree, but when you're getting all these kind of faces like Tom Holland and all these different people turning up in the movie, it's almost like Adam Green feels like I've got to give them something to say. I've got to give them all these lines. And so the film kind of stutters really until it gets to the last half an hour before it has any sense of suspense, basically. And even then, you don't really get any chase scenes. Everything that someone said, Victor Crowley just jumps up from behind things. So it kind of works as a kind of a funhouse ride, I kind of guess.
Exactly.
But I think I would have, been great to see, Victor Crowley chasing Mary Beth on one of those kind of speedboats with a big fans on the back, through the swamps or something a bit more expansive or something a little bit more different. And it didn't really have that. Danielle Harris, I liked in the role. I mean, I have to mention, I know it's not her fault and I know it's a physical tick, but the whole eyebrow thing did.
She had the Erik Freeman thing going on.
Yeah, which, to be honest, I think I felt bad for her because later in the movie, she's got like a hair across one of the eyebrows. It's obviously kind of some physical tick. And I thought, surely Adam Green should have said to her, this is really distracting, let's sort something out of your hair. For her, just to make her look better. I think she was good in this, but her character is so one note that she's, everyone else is being campy and being throwaway and heads are being ripped off, all the kind of stuff. It's this kind of, funhouse ride of just, Grand Guignol funhouse ride. And her character is just like, at one point she smirks a little bit, smiles once in the movie. Not to say she should be like, happy-go-lucky or anything, but it's kind of, she wasn't really given that much to do with the character, which I think is a shame, apart from being pissed off and a bit grumpy. And it was a little bit one note. I think I would have liked to have seen her, and I don't think it's her fault. I always felt sort of bad for Danielle Harris because I know she obviously got a break in the Halloween films, and she's never really broken through to that kind of A-list or even to the bigger roles. And I know she's one of those legacy actresses or actors from older horror movies who are still working, but more often than not, they're not being given the best roles in the best films, unfortunately. And I've always liked her, and I just think I know she auditioned for the role of Mary Beth in the original, and Adam Green turned her down because he said he already had Tony Todd, and who was the other one that was in? Of course, what's his name?
Kane Hodder.
Kane Hodder, of course. And it felt a bit too like stunt casting if you had too distracting if you had to have another horror icon in a role. And it seems ironic slightly that given with this, that the whole film is chock full of these cameos. Even Lloyd Kaufman, the Troma head honcho, appears in it at some point. It just feels like almost a little bit indulgent. And at sacrifice of making a good fun slasher movie. So for me, it's a mixed bag. I would give it 6 or 7 out of 10. I did enjoy it, not as much as the first film. And I say my 14-year-old self, flicking through Page of Fangoria, would have been in seventh heaven watching this. So I can appreciate the feels that it gave me. But it's. One of the critics I saw said that the movie was written in a week. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it kind of felt
probably
like it.
Is.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, if I'd seen this as a teenager, I would have, it would have blown my mind because, like you, I was so used to seeing really gory photographs in Fangoria and then them never showing up in actual movies. So yeah, it certainly delivered that way. I was thinking, you were saying about Mary Whitehouse, how would she react to Hatchet? I was wondering how would she react to Terrifier, which I think goes one step further than Hatchet does. At least Hatchet does it in kind of a really jokey kind of way, whereas Terrifier is, I don't know, I find it quite cruel and mean-spirited.
Well, it's going to be interesting when we get into background about how this movie was received.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So, anything we want to say before we go into background? Although I would just add that I did like the scene where AJ Bowen is having sex with that woman, and she asks him if he likes ice cream, if he thinks this is better than ice cream, better than chocolate ice cream. Is it better than Jesus? Is it better than baby Jesus?
Yeah, when she got to the Jesus, I admit I laughed at that line when he's like, "That's inappropriate," and then she's like, "Baby Jesus." I was like, "Oh, that's kind of funny." I just wanted to say, I don't hate this movie. I just don't care. If you see all the gore, I've seen all the gore. It's like suspense. There's so much you can do with suspense still. Gore, I mean, what else can they do with gore other than linger on it? And like Erik said, once they do that, it's like, okay, it just gets nauseating. So, I don't know.
Okay, will we go for background?
Yeah.
Nathan, do you have any background for us?
I have a little bit.
Oh.
So, Danielle Harris was in Halloween 4 and 5.
Didn't know that.
Kane Hodder, who played Victor Crowley and Victor Crowley's father, he played Jason.
You're kidding me.
Tony Todd played Candyman.
Never heard of that one.
Yep. I mean, this is obscure stuff. Tom Holland wrote Fright Night and Child's Play. He was also Deputy Norris in Psycho 2.
He directed Fright Night and Child's Play as well.
Well, see, and I was giving more credit to the writing part of it. Let's see. John Carl Buechler. Is that how you say his name?
Buechler, I've heard it pronounced on documentaries and DVDs and stuff.
That makes sense. John Carl Buechler, he did the special effects for Friday the 13th, The New Blood. He also directed it.
Yeah. And he did the effects for Halloween 4, which was starring Danielle Harris.
He did the effects for Hatchet, the first one. Crazy, huh? AJ Bowen was in You're Next. He played Crispin, and I love that movie, You're Next. I think it's a lot of fun.
And that was a year after this, wasn't it? 2011, when I looked it up.
Yeah.
Mm.
And Adam Green also directed Hatchet from 2006. So...
He also directed a film called Frozen before this. Have any of you seen it? It's the one where the people are trapped in the ski lift.
Yeah,
I really liked that film.
I did too. People slagged that movie, and I thought it was good. The characters made some dumb decisions, but that's part of the point. I think people just gave that movie too much flack.
So I know you guys are shocked that I actually had some background, but you're welcome.
Thank you, IMDb.
Yeah, you've blown our mind. Joseph, do you have anything?
Not really, but one point that Justin made about Danielle Harris is like, she never quite broke into the A-list. She's kind of one of those child stars. She had that same trajectory as a child star, but she managed to avoid, getting into drugs and alcohol. Hers was just dumb luck. She was in like The Last Boy Scout and Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, along with the Halloween films. So she was kind of well on her way, and then she just kind of was kind of relegated to these kind of B-plus tier horror films that stream on Shudder. That's great. I like a lot of them, but, I wonder if she, I don't know. I wonder if she was just like hoped for the A-list one day. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we were discussing this on our Friday the 13th final chapter commentary for Patreon, that we're talking about child stars growing up into sort of grown-up actors, and sometimes the acting talent begins to wane. But I think with Danielle Harris, I think she's grown up to be a really good actress. So
she's great.
And
of course, as great as that goth in Grumpy Goth in Urban Legend as
the
well.
Grumpy Goth in Urban Legend was just fantastic as Justin, do you have anything for us?
I've got a few bits. There was some controversy over the changing of Danielle Harris, the actress Amara Zaragoza. Reading between the lines, Adam Green told MTV News just ahead of the film's premiere that there seemed to be some bad blood between him and Zaragoza, and so they asked him why she wasn't in the movie, and just to quote, he said, "The simple answer is that it wasn't going to work out. I think she was told some bad advice in handling herself in a bad way with us." And he added, we had this whole storyline planned out where we were going to start the movie on the same frame as the other one ended on. We were like, do we change all of that? Because this pretty much unknown actress is being difficult with us right now. So, which obviously showed there was some kind of bad blood. I don't know what went on, but obviously there was bad blood there. But as I mentioned, Daniel Harris had auditioned to be in the first one. So the film, when it was, I was just having a look, when it was filmed in January and February of 2010 in and around New Orleans, Louisiana, and Adam Green kind of does that kind of Hitchcock cameo thing at the beginning of the movie by vomiting, being kind of frat boy lying next to a pile of vomit on the streets as Daniel Harris kind of marches on past. The film was kind of initially slapped with an NC-17 rating by the MPAA, which kind of at the time was considered like an albatross around the neck of any film. I mean, the whole idea of the NC-17 was to have so you could have like adult films which weren't pornos, that were for an adult audience would go a little bit further with violence and sexual situations. But the newspapers and radio would refuse to carry advertising for them, which kind of basically is seen as
MPAA, we're coming, Blockbuster. Your days are numbered.
Exactly. So, so he decided that the film should be put out unrated instead. But apparently the AMC chain pulled the film from all its theatres across the US. Now, interestingly, he said when he was quizzed about the violence in the movie, he actually said that the Hatchet 2 was meant to be a satiric spoof on the so-called torture porn movies, which to me sounds a bit odd because although it's incredibly violent and gory, it's not a torture porn movie, is it? You know, as far as the idea of kind of people being tortured and tied up and protracted scenes of people being, you know, sort of tied to chairs and, you know, horrible things done to them. If anything, it seems more of an exaggeration of the themes and the visual imagery of the original movie. But he said that he couldn't understand why people were so upset about the movie because he said it was cartoonish and impossible to take seriously. And he said he told one newspaper, "There's not a single act of violence in this that could actually happen." So the film was, just to close up, but the film was savaged by critics. So it's funny in some ways. I was thinking that Adam Green had done this love letter to slasher movies with Hatchet, and Hatchet 2 was getting the kind of reviews that slasher movies released in the early 1980s would get. So just to give you some idea of those, Roger Moore in the Orlando Sentinel said that fans of movies such as Hatchet 2 are never ever dating my daughters. So basically he sort of said that people like that were just kind of beneath contempt.
I wouldn't think James Bond would feel that way about a Hatchet film.
Possibly won't. With that eyebrow acting, he's Roger Moore of James Bond fame. I don't think it's that Roger Moore, but so Rennie Rodriguez in the News and Observer also had some shade of her own by trying to dismiss the movie by saying that she's the one that said reportedly Green had cranked the movie out in a week, and ended with the line, "The movie is just inept and dull and stupid, just being passed off as guilty bloody pleasure." So it's pretty much universally panned. I think the only kind of half decent review, not even half decent, but only review that seemed to not completely pan the movie was in the LA Times that I found, and it said it doesn't scare, but it amuses fans of increasingly ridiculous deaths. So we always talk about sometimes the mainstream critics back in the time, and Roger Ebert was also, he reviewed it and hated it. We will say back in the time that none of the mainstream critics actually seemed to understand the pure joy of seeing a gory slasher movie in a theatre, and the fun of going with it, and the fact that it's not taking itself too seriously, so therefore you don't necessarily need to review a film with this kind of sense of it being a good movie in inverted commas as opposed to whatever. So that was very much true of those early 80s slashers, and it seems the irony, and we're talking about comparisons with Terrifier, where Terrifier 3 at time recording is just out, isn't it, I think? And it's got something like 83% on Rotten Tomatoes from mainstream critics.
I kind of want to see that one, actually. It kind of looks okay, from the trailer at least.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see, because I know the second one, I kind of enjoyed them for what they are, and I've seen some of the original ones from the All Hallows Eve, the kind of anthology with Art the Clown, and but the second one went off into that kind of strange kind of thing at the end, didn't it, with like almost sci-fi feeling of kind of. So I don't know if that carries through to the third one. So anyway, Erik, I'm sure you've got a few bits left.
I have a few bits left, yes. Let me just see what I have here. R.A. Mihailov, not sure how to pronounce his surname, plays Trent in this, and he was Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Jack Cracker, we said John Carl Beekler played him. It premiered actually in London at Fright Fest in 2010 before it got its release in the States. Perry Shen, who plays Justin in the movie, he's appeared in in the first 3 Hatchet films, but has different characters in each one. So in the first one he played somebody called Sean, who worked for the Swamp Tours company. In this one he plays Justin, who's Sean's brother, so I guess they could be identical twins. And then in the third one he plays a paramedic called Andrew. Of course he gets killed as Justin in Hatchet 2. Hatchet 2 had been in Adam Green's mind whilst he was making the first film in filming in 2005. So he hired Tony Todd to play the role of Reverend Zombie in the first movie, even though the role was literally 2 minutes. But the idea was to expand the role for the second one. So he had planned a sequel all along. And apparently a crew member who was a Mormon resigned from the movie due to its extreme content. Now, they resigned sort of in a very sort of friendly way, saying, look, this is against my religion and it's a bit too much for me, so I'm going to politely remove myself from this production. So it wasn't a big storming out or anything. So a Mormon resigned from the movie. And that's all I have, I think. Let me turn my page and see if I have any more. No, I don't.
Okay, well, thank you, Erik. And what was the consensus on the group? Because I think this has got quite polarised reactions, hasn't it, Joseph?
Yeah, we had 15 comments, and the top 3 are all from Facebook this week. Tyler Elkins writes, same problem I have with the original. Incredibly elaborate and well-done special effects without any substance or intrigue to keep me interested. I would agree with him. Sean Guerrero says, Adam Green really upped the ante with Hatchet 2, adding depth to the characters and amplifying the terror. A masterclass in splatter horror. The entire series is just so much fun in my eyes. And Mitch King chimes in with a food analogy. This is interesting. The Hatchet films are the horror equivalent of Hot Pockets. Sure, they taste fine when you're hungry, but you're not going to seek them out. If one of these pop up on TV, I wouldn't turn it off, but I'm not going to seek it out. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram to know what we're doing ahead of time. Listen on all podcatchers, both good and terrible. Though for purely selfish reasons, please consider our YouTube and Patreon feeds. Over 200 plus bonus episodes, commentaries, quizzes, and top 3s on Patreon. We've done it all. That's patreon.com/The Hysteria Continues. And you can drop us a line at The Hysteria Continues, all one word, at gmail.com. Justin, get down here!
Thank you. Well, let's.
Yes.
I've actually prepared a joke of the week, so I'm going to duel it with Erik's. So if Erik
going
mind,
first,
I might go for. Would that be all right, Erik?
Yes, go on.
Okay, here we go.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
What did Toya do when she couldn't find a toilet in a department store? She had a Hatchet Part 2.
That's... You totally stole my joke that I did in Hatchet Part 1. Wow. My joke in Hatchet Part 1 was... What was Victor Crowley's sombrero doing on the toilet? It was doing a hatchet.
Eric, it's you can't. Don't be a hater.
I am being a hater because you totally stole my joke. You stole my joke.
Yeah, but Hatchet 1 and 2 are exactly the same film, really, aren't they? So you've got to have the same joke.
Yeah, he's got a
You
point
are
there.
a whore, darling.
I was actually going to compliment Erik. It's like, wow, Erik, I don't think you've ever told anything that bad.
Well, let's find out.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
So Tom Holland was really nervous going in front of the camera for this movie. He had to have a few drinks to give him some Dutch courage. Tom Holland. Dutch.
That was better than Justin's.
I
Justin.
beg to disagree, actually. Nathan, who would you say was the funnier joke?
Oh, I can't be in the middle here.
No, that's not what you said last night.
You know what? And I would have gone against the other one, whoever said that about me, but you both said it. So both your jokes were terrible.
There's the diplomatic answer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, well,
I've got a bit of feedback to read out,
Oh,
I
okay.
think.
Yep.
This is from our friend Rob Balducci. And he says, "Hello, guys. Looking forward to hearing your fantasies episode, even though I thought the movie itself was kind of bland. The killer reveal caught me off guard, though. Also glad you're covering Hatchet 2, as it's one I never got around to and now have a reason to finally watch it. I've recently been watching the Children of the Corn series, just finished part 5. Was curious if you consider these slasher movies and if you guys are fans. I like the first one mainly for nostalgic reasons, and part 3 is a lot of fun. I also recently watched all of Joe Bego's films. Is that how you pronounce it? Begos? I know you guys weren't fans of his Christmas Bloody Christmas, but was curious if you've seen any of his others. Almost Human, The Mind's Eye, Bliss, and VFW. I found them all pretty enjoyable, but can see how they wouldn't be for everyone. Lastly, I know you haven't done top 3s in a while, but had an idea for maybe a one-off Patreon episode where you rank your top 3 films you've covered on the show, or just your 3 favourite slashers, and maybe your bottom 3. As always, thank you so much for all you do. I always get excited when a new episode drops and really appreciate all of the hard work you guys put in. Rob Balducci." Well, Rob, I do enjoy the Children of the Corn movies. I'm not sure if they're slasher films. Parts 1 to 3 definitely work for me, though. I find them great fun. What do you guys think? Slasher movies or not?
The first one, sure. Beyond that, I don't remember the rest of them. I think I only remember the first one.
I think it certainly could be shoehorned in, couldn't it? Because it's very much that.
I mean, if Maximum Overdrive could be,
I think it's more of a slasher movie than Maximum Overdrive is. Although, did we actually cover that as a main pick?
We did. We had Jenny Hall Cameron on the show.
Yeah. But I haven't seen it for a long time, so I couldn't. But from what I remember, what you've got like a couple turning up in a small town where all the kids have killed the adults, and so there is that going on, isn't there?
Yeah, and there are stalking and murder scenes in the movie, so I mean it's a slasher up until the end.
There's lots of like slasher weapons, like hatchets and scythes and sickles, and
it's a slasher movie in my mind. I think it is.
Yeah, I think we could cover it.
Well, there you go. So, and thank you for the top 3 idea. Maybe we'll utilise that. We'll have a think about that. So always good to hear from you, Rob.
I don't think I've seen any of the other dudes in movies except for Christmas Bloody Christmas, which I hated.
Yes, I hate it as well. That's the sweary one, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it FVW or whatever? Is that the one set at the bar?
The Veterans of Foreign Wars, yeah.
Oh, is that what it stands for?
Yeah.
Is that the one? I think I've seen that one.
I think
which
so.
I didn't mind, yeah. But I've not seen Bliss or any of his others, I don't think. So I must admit, Christmas Bloody Christmas did put me off. But, yeah, so...
Yeah, please don't pick it for Christmas this year.
No, I don't think that's going to happen. Right, okay, well, I think that's all Hatchet 2 done. But we're going to find out what we're covering next time. And Eric, I believe it is your pick, isn't it?
No, this was my pick. Yeah, this was my
that's
pick.
Right. Sorry, it's Joseph's pick.
It made me think there for a second. What?
Sorry.
Well, if you guys want to get even more confused, my next pick is actually Nathan's pick because we're trading months, and you'll understand in November, although I've probably just given that away. But my next pick for October is Hellbent from 2004, I think it was.
Cool, okay. I haven't seen that one for a while, but I remember liking that one, so yeah, I look forward to covering that. And Eric, what are we playing out with?
Yes, well, I sent you on a song that I'm not going to use now because you directed us to a particularly juicy nugget of music last night on YouTube. From 1985, it was Edwige Fenech doing a cover version of Ghostbusters. Now, this has nothing to do with Hatchet 2, but it's a fun thing to close the show on because it's quite bizarre. I love the fact that there's no context to this either, that it's just there on YouTube.
What were you originally going to play on?
I was going to play Iko Iko by the Bell Stars because apparently it's a song about Louisiana and New Orleans.
I like the Ghostbusters idea.
But this one, if you've not seen it on YouTube, then check it out as Edwige Fenech doing in a very, very strong Italian or French accent Ghostbusters, and she says there's ghosts in your neighborhood.
Yes, she's totally channeling what's her face from Fatal Frames.
She is, and she's in this haunted house, which is like made out of rubber, and everything falls over.
Stefania Stella. God, I couldn't remember her name.
Neither could I.
God, wow.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, thank you for listening to Hysteria Continues. I hope you enjoyed that trip back to the swamp, and I'm sure we'll get around to the third one at some point in the not too distant future. So, join us over on Patreon and listen. We had a lot of fun doing the Friday the 13th, the final chapter commentary. So, looking forward to you guys hearing that. And we'll catch you next time on Hellbent. So, thank you for listening, and say goodbye to the good people.
Bye.
Goodbye. Nathan in the middle.
Thank you for listening.
Bye.
There's something strange in the neighborhood.